Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Liz Loves Books. Today we're going to be talking about my absolutely favorite romance books and their tropes. So let's get into it. I am so glad to be back filming videos. I took a little bit of a hiatus that was longer than I planned, but I am back and I am very excited for my next couple of videos. As I said in the intro, I'm gonna be talking about my favorite romance books and their tropes. So let's start with the first one. This is an absolute fave romance book of mine, and that is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. This is a contemporary romance, although it is kind of different because the trope is actually boyfriend's dad, which I wouldn't say this is a favorite trope of mine. It just happened to work for me in this book specifically. This one, it's like they're living in the same house. Like, it's intense. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the back. It says, Faye Adekola wants to learn how to be alive again. It's been 5 years since the accident that killed the love of her life, and she's almost a new person now. An artist with her own studio, sharing a brownstone apartment with her best friend Joy, who insists it's time for Faye to ease back into the dating scene. Faye isn't ready for anything serious, but a steamy encounter at a rooftop party cascades into a whirlwind summer she could never have imagined. A luxury trip to a tropical island, decadent meals in the glamorous home of a celebrity chef, and a major curator who wants to launch her art career. She's even started dating the perfect guy, but their new relationship might be sabotaged before it has a chance by the dangerous thrill Faye feels every time she locks eyes with the one person in the house who's most definitely off limits, his father. How far is Faye willing to go for a second chance at love? Akwaeke Emezi's vivid and passionate writing takes us deep into a world of possibility and healing and the constant bravery of choosing love against all odds. Now, I know the back of that makes it sound like she is, like, just doing all this just for a chance at second love. This character is unlikable. There will be moments where you definitely will not like her, and you will be so angry at her, angry at the dad, but also very happy for them at the same time, but then also feeling absolutely terrible for the son because he's a really good person in this book, so it makes it very, very difficult. But I just thought it was just such clever writing. It's nice and short. It's not too long. I flew through this book when I read it back in 2024. It was a 5-star then. I haven't reread it since then, so I'm not sure if it would be a 5-star now, but currently is one of my favorite romance books that I've ever read. Next, we have Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. This is a workplace romance trope. This book is a little bit longer than the previous one, and this is also another contemporary romance. All of my suggestions here, I believe, are all contemporary romances. Those are like my favorite types of romances. But, as I said, this is a workplace romance between two musicians, and we've got our FMC Gwen and our MMC Xander. Xander is a cellist and Gwen is a violinist, and they are working within the Manhattan Pops Orchestra in New York City. So the description here says, two rival musicians fight their attraction as they compete for center stage. That's the overall plot. When professional and self-taught violinist Gwen Jackson plays, she disappears into the peaks and valleys of each song, a quiet passion that never quite explodes into pure emotion. Xander Thorne is the exact opposite. A cellist and a rock star, he's all about big emotion, but not even his 6'4" frame can contain his skill, his genius, and an attitude that borders on jerkitude. This is a very cheesy plot description. I promise what's inside is not as cheesy as that description. It says, not only did it take Xander a year to notice that he and Gwen both play in the Manhattan Pops, but he also always seems to have the perfect cutting criticism about her technique. When Gwen is offered the role of first chair of the orchestra, something Xander has secretly coveted for years, their existing hostility goes up a notch. Yet, despite her best efforts, Gwen can't ignore the sizzling chemistry between them. Forced to work more closely together, it's clear that their powerful connection could make for a performance that would blow everyone's minds. Suddenly, their box office dynamite and the fragile romance growing between them is in danger of being crushed beneath a publicity stunt. So, as I said, workplace romance, forced proximity. There's a lot of like publicity within their relationship once it comes out. They're trying to keep it more secretive. And Julie Soto is just one of my absolutely favorite authors. I've given this book 5 stars. I've given other books of hers 5 stars and 4 stars. So she is definitely a favorite of mine. And I'm a huge music nerd. So this was just so fun to be able to read because I got all the little mini references. So it might not hit as hard for people that aren't musicians, but I think it's still an extremely like amazing book that everyone should read. And then The art on here is also so realistic and so cool, and it really shows like the depth of the relationship, I think, and the scene itself is amazing in the book. So that is Not Another Love Song. Next we have Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage, book 4 in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. You guys have heard me talk about this book over and over and over again, but I'm going to keep recommending it. And this trope is second chance romance, which I discovered back in 2025 that second chance romance is like one of my new absolute favorite romance tropes, like probably number 1, which I never would have expected. But this follows our FMC Cam and our MMC Dusty, and they are childhood friends, like high school friends, and they were together in high school, and then they kind of drifted apart, and now they're back like late 20s, early 30s, I believe, and they're getting a second chance at their love. So the description says she's the one that got away, he's the one that never let go. So Dusty has always been pining for Cam, and Cam has kind of tried to move on with her life. She had a child, she had a whole other different relationships, and Dusty has always kind of been like, it's always been her, it will always be you, nobody else will ever compare. It says, Camille Ashwood has always loved a plan. Her latest was her best yet. She was going to get married so she could secure her daughter's future, get her overbearing parents off her back, and finally start building her life in small town Meadowlark, Wyoming. Easy, right? But when her groom doesn't show up for the wedding, Cam's life is turned upside down and she doesn't even have a place to live. That is, until she finds out the house she's lived since high school is available to rent. There's only one problem, the neighbor, and that is Dusty. He is the neighbor. And Dusty Tucker has spent nearly all of his adult life running. Running from what, though? More like who? Cam Ashwood. But ever since he returned home last year, the girl who was his first, well, everything has become a woman seemingly determined to keep him at arm's length. And he was okay with that, at least that's what he kept telling himself. She was getting married after all. But now she's single and living next door. Dusty wants to show her that they can be friends and that he can stay put. Another thing I really loved about this book, along with it being second chance, is there is flashbacks to when they were teenagers and together. So there's that past and present timeline. And then they also have a little bit of like emails and text threads. Not a ton, but a lot of times there'll be one chapter where it'll be like 15 years ago and it's all in italics and talks about their relationships then. And this was another 5-star of 2025. Now, this is another book that everyone has heard about and raved about, so I won't go too far into it, and that is If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. This trope is a single dad small town romance, takes place in the fall in Vermont, in a little small town. It follows our main characters, Cliff and Michelle, and they are basically just kind of the two opposites of each other. Michelle is from the big city, and she has a really big high corporate job, and she was with this guy who treated her really terribly, and Cliff is a single dad to 2 daughters, and his ex-wife is a piece of work. She is definitely not a great mother, not a great person, and you really see that within this book. Now, this is a long book. It's like over 500 pages, but it doesn't read like it's 500 pages. It reads so quickly. You just zoom through all the chapters, and it is just so easy to read. The dialogue in this book is really, really great. Basically, Michelle has to move to Vermont to help run her family's bed and breakfast that her mother owned, but her mother recently passed, and she's just covering it for a few months until her sister finishes school and takes over the Airbnb. But she finds out, obviously, once she moves there, she lives next door to Cliff and his daughters and kind of falls in love with the 2 daughters and Cliff. But throughout the whole book, she's kind of like thinking like, I'm leaving. Why would I do this to these kids and make them get to know me and then have to leave them and hurt them and Cliff and all the people in the town? But in reality, you know, it's a romance contemporary. She learns she's hurting herself more than anything, you know. It has that happy ending, and the fall vibes in this are just immaculate. They are beautiful and stunning, and this is probably the prettiest book cover I've ever seen in my life. So that is If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. Then we have my favorite contemporary romance book of all time. I have 3 editions of it, and that is Hopeless by Elsie Silver. I have a special edition of it here. I have the old indie edition people cover. And I have the other indie edition of the mirror cover of Hopeless as well. but this is a small town romance as well as the fake fiance trope. And we are basically following Bo Eaton, our MMC, and Bailey Jansen, our FMC. And you see Bo throughout the other previous books, and he's highly mentioned, but he is actually out of the town because he is in the military. But in this book, he comes back because he had a pretty bad foot burn injuries, and so he was no longer able to serve. And so he is kind of dealing with that and that depression and problem with him like not being able to be in the military anymore and coming back to this small town and just feeling like his purpose has disappeared. And Bailey is actually the local bartender at their bar that they've got in town, but she also comes from a family who are really terrible people. Her two brothers and her father are alcoholics, thieves, drug addicts, and so she is desperately trying to get out of the small town. And she and Bo kind of know of each other, but they end up kind of meeting by chance within the bar, and a relationship pursues. And this also, you could say, is an age gap romance because Bailey is 22 and Bo, I think, is 36. So there is that big age gap. If that's another trope you're interested in, I just thought the fake fiance trope was, more prevalent in this because obviously they pretend to be engaged just to get everyone off of Bailey's back and Bo's back, because at this point, all of his family, extended family, are together, are married, engaged, dating, and he's just by himself saying, ah. And so they both come into that little pact agreement in order to help just improve their daily lives there. And Elsie Silver is amazing. She is a booktube darling, but I know this isn't usually everybody's favorite in the series. It's usually Heartless, but this one just blew me away when I read it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you meant I had to read through 4 books within the series to get to this one, my absolute favorite. It's just kind of fun that it was the last one. And I can't even explain fully why I love it so much. It just was the time that I read it, how quickly I read through it. I read it in 2 days, and it's 400 something pages. So that was kind of crazy. But I'm just going to read this little quote on the back here too. It says, Bo Eaton is the town prince, a handsome military hero with a tortured past. I'm the outcast bartender, a shy girl from the wrong side of the tracks. So I guess you could say that's another trope as well. It's the wrong side of the tracks trope. But let's get to my final pick. This is actually perfect that I'm filming this now because we just got the announcement of the release of the 6th and final book in this series, the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. Volume 6 is coming out in July 2nd of this year, and this is the first book. This is a contemporary graphic novel YA series, but the trope definitely for this one is friends to lovers. We follow our 2 MMCs, Charlie and Nick, and they are in high school, and they are both kind of from different parts of the school. Charlie is kind of a quiet, more loner. He plays the drums, he's kind of artistic, and Nick is a really popular guy at the school on the rugby team. And this is just, all of these books are just the development of their relationship, them becoming boyfriends, all of their friends' relationships, and a found family trope as well. And on the back here it says, boy meets boy, boys become friends, boys fall in love. Shy and soft-hearted Charlie Spring sits next to rugby player Nick Nelson in class one morning. A warm and intimate friendship follows, and that soon develops into something more for Charlie, who doesn't think he has a chance. But Nick is struggling with feelings of his own, and as the two grow closer and take on the ups and downs of high school, they come to understand the surprising and delightful ways in which love works. This is just an amazing story for high school kids to have, but also it's written in a way that adults love it as well. And it doesn't seem so YA that you're oh, the writing, oh, the plots, And it's just such an adorable series, and I highly recommend if you're looking for a new graphic novel series to start, or a series with LGBTQ plus rep, this is a really great book series to get into. Alright guys, that is the end of my fave romance authors and trope recommendations videos. I hope you guys found something new to maybe try out, or if you have any recommendations for me in the comments below, please leave those. And I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye guys.